MSD Project. Yeah, so as mentioned last Friday, these two paragraphs here, these are the mandatory requirements for your project. You need to have an app that allows users to take pictures, store some sort of caption or text associated with the pictures. It should be able to view the new entries, add the new entries, review means edit, and also delete. So your CRUD lah, create, read, update, delete. So that is the mandatory requirements. Subsequently, for the enhancements, these are the parts that will grant you your A's and B's. Okay, and code refactoring, this one I will cover next time. Mobile analytics is like very, very little marks. So I will just tell you what to refer to, which is here. Then your test cases. Okay, test cases develop at least 4. Why? At least 4. In case you make mistakes, I will find until I can get 4 correct. Okay, but if you duplicate your mistakes in all the test cases, then you're wasting electricity lah. Or wasting your energy also. Okay, so of course you are expected to present, explain, and demonstrate the app. I let you use Jelly Eye if you want to. Feel free to do so, but still have to explain. Okay, and when you use Jelly Eye, I want you to make sure that everything is seamless as one app. You don't Jelly Eye one part, Jelly Eye one part, Jelly Eye one part. Then everything looks so disparate. You get what I mean, right? So maybe one day you Jelly Eye the BMI calculator, the next day you Jelly Eye the calories. Then when you combine your code, is the way it's structured is very different, and the appearance also very different. Doesn't look very seamless. Okay, so use whatever you have learned to make it look like an actual application. Okay. Yeah, so you have created your project, right? Okay, so we will be using 3 packages for this project. Okay, before that, I'm going to put in my formatter code first in my analysis options. Okay, the 3 packages that you need to import are the SQF-Lite, Path, and Camera. Okay, so you turn on your terminal window. Let's do SQF-Lite first. Flutter pub add SQF-Lite. Okay, Flutter pub add SQF-Lite. Please don't forget the F. Okay, press enter. So as covered in lab 7, this SQF-Lite is to create a database table so that you can use it in your application. Okay, so we also need the path to keep stock of where your database is going to be. Okay, Flutter pub add PATH. Okay, PATH. Okay, and last one is camera. Flutter add camera. I've not used this package for some time. I'm not sure how stable it is with the current that we are using. In fact, the pub at camera, no S. Okay, so 3 packages. Verify at your prospect YAML. You should see the 3 new packages, the camera package, the pub, and SQLite. Okay, the order is alphabetical order, so you will see it in this list. Okay, so the version may be different. So Flutter will download the version by right, should be the one that's compatible with your that version. But sometimes it may not be by right, it may be by left. Okay, so you only find out when you start to run your app. Yeah. So those are the 3 packages you need. Okay, now for this project, I want to make it as industry standard as possible. Also to ensure that when you decide to add more things or more enhancements to your app, you are able to do it more organized, in a more organized way. Okay, so in my lib folder, you click on main.dat to make sure you are in the lib folder. I want you to create a new folder. Okay, folder is the second icon. Okay, create a new folder. Name it as model. Okay, go back to main.dat. Create another folder. DB. Okay, so within lib folder, you have DB subfolder and model subfolder. Main.dat is at the same level as DB and model. Okay, so make sure you have this structure in your lib. Okay, now you click on model and you click on new file. Okay, click on model, click on new file. Call this as food diary. Food diary dot EART. Enter. Okay, so just like lab 7, or rather lab 1, we are going to create a class to help us structure the objects that we will be creating. So in this case, for now, it is just the food diary post. Each time you create a new post of a food diary item, you will use this class to help you create the post. Okay, so it's a blueprint for you to create your food diary objects. Okay, so I'm going to call this class as food diary post. Okay, so for the attributes, I will use the 3. Technically, there will be 3. On paper, in the requirements, there are 2. Okay, so let's put in the 2 first. I'm going to use late here so that I don't get prompted with the error. String caption, string image. Okay, so these are the 2 pieces of attributes that are mentioned in the requirements. But of course, since we are going to be dealing with a database, we also need ID. Okay, and this is an optional because when you create your post, it may not be assigned an ID yet. It will only be assigned an ID once it has been inserted into the database. So this is why it may be null at certain points of your app. Okay, So you notice when I use late, it doesn't give me an error. If I use, let's say I change to final, you have an error. Okay, because final variables must be initialized when you create it. At the point of creation, you must initialize it. Okay, but we are not going to use that. We will just use late at this point. You can use final because anyway, we are going to create a constructor. But I also want you guys to be sure of, or to be clear on what is this late. So this late is something like a promise. It's like I create first, later, then I initialize. Okay. Right, so let's do the constructor. Constructor, as we learned last week, is used to help you construct an instance of a class. Okay, so we need to put in the individual attributes. This .id required is .caption required is .image file. Okay, so this ID doesn't have required. Okay, because when we are going to create, when you're going to use this constructor to create the post object, it may not have the ID yet. The ID will only be assigned once it has been inserted into the database. But these two things must be provided. Okay, so in a way, this thing is linked to the question mark here. Okay, you all must pay attention now. I may ask you these things during your presentation. I should record this demo as a silent movie to force you to undertake here. And those who are not here cannot make advantage of recording. Huh? What haram? It's not haram. It's for your, in preparation for poly. You must have good listening ears during poly. Yeah. Okay, yes? Huh? I never do anything in that. Do you realize I cannot hear you? Yeah, so this constructor is going to be used to help you create your post objects, your food diary post objects. Okay, so this is the standard constructor. I'm going to create another type of constructor called the named constructor. This is a special type of constructor. Okay, so it will also have food diary post, but it has a name dot from map. Okay, so this is considered as a utility constructor. We will create a food diary post in a special way when we use this. Oh, sorry, this one don't have the curly one. We'll create the food diary post using this one when we are about to send it over to the database. Yes, SQLite. Okay, so it looks like a function. So ID equals to map A. So based on lab 7, we learned that the SQLite largely uses map objects to deal with the data. Okay, so we are just trying to basically be able to link up our food diary items with the required structure with SQLite. Then HBAR to map image. Okay, so this ID caption and image path on the left side of the equal sign is referring to the properties of the class. Okay, these items here, this ID caption image path to the left of the equal sign is referring to the attributes or properties of the class. Those within the map, as set as the map indexes, this will become this is referencing the columns that you create later for your database table. Okay, so I'm telling you this in case you wish to customize your food diary posts, for example, by adding timestamp to capture when the user posted. Okay, then you need to add the property here. After this, you need to modify this, you need to modify this. Okay, and if there's any other things that you want to customize for your food diary items, you will need to modify this stuff. Right, so I repeat again, this one is referring to the attributes of the class here. This red, reddish, orangish ticks here, this will be the column names of your database table. So to ensure you don't get confused with whatever casing you're using, make them the same lah. If you realize in we didn't do the lab, so in lab 8 and 9, there are actually different spellings for some of the columns. Okay, but in lab 7, we kept mostly the same. Right, so just make sure that they are spelled the same way so you don't get confused and get stuck on some kind of error that is just simply a typo error. Okay, so this is a named constructor. Okay, next one is another utility function, which we will also need to use when working with your SQLite database. Map string dynamic. I hope you all know what is map string dynamic, or why rather is map string dynamic. Do you? I thought I asked some of you this during your MSD. Must be because you don't know how to answer, right? Why? Why map string dynamic? What does dynamic mean? Can what? Can be any data type. Okay, so you look at your columns, your attributes. Are they all the same type? No, right? We have an ID, which is integer. The other two are string. Okay, so this is to facilitate the case where the data you retrieve, the nature of the data you retrieve is not just string. Index is always going to be a string format. So this one is a string. Okay, but the actual value can be any other type. Okay, so this is a function. Look at the structure here. This is a function. This part is the return type. This part is the function name. Okay, so this is having an error because I specify this return type, but it is not returning anything yet. Okay, this is a function returning a map of type string dynamic. Okay, so we need to return something. Okay, what are we returning? We're returning a map object. So let's spell out what is going to be the map object. And image bar. This is a duck statement, you need a semicolon. Okay, so once again, this will be the indexes. This will be the values. Okay, so this thing is related to the food diary post object, to each individual food diary post object, which is why it is in the same class. Okay, so it is once again to help us interface with the SQLite database when we are trying to convert the post into a map so that we can send it over to the SQLite to store. Okay, SQLite will store it in map format. Okay, lastly, the last utility function is toString, which is going to override the default implementation of toString. Okay, this will return a string. The function name is called toString. Return. This one, the quotation is a bit confusing. Food diary post. Then we have ID. Then $ID. Huh? No? Take note of where the commas are, where your quotations are being closed. Okay, the last one doesn't have a comma. So we are simply just formatting the value as a string, like a map object. If it makes sense to you. Okay, so ID, caption, image file. This is also a utility function to help us interface with the SQLite database. Okay, so if you decide to implement an enhancement that also does storage as into the database, that means you plan to have another table to store the data, you may need to create another one of this file with the appropriate name. Okay, place it within the model folder. Okay, model is meant to, you all learn MVC, right? Yeah, so you know what's model, right? What's model, Miguel? Model, not view. I'll ask Farish what is view. Miguel, what is model? Since your name is also M. What's model? What? What's a model? Nobody knows what's a model, Mr. Andrew really. What's a model? Huh? Classes and constructors. Yeah. It's meant to represent the objects that you're going to use in your system, your applications. Okay, so in this case, a food diary post is a type of model, something you plan to store inside the table in the database. Which one is view? View the thing. Oh, okay. What's a view? Yeah? What you see, what the users will see. Then what is controller? Crystal. C for controller. C for crystal. What's controller? Huh? Because it's nearby. MVC, MVC. C. What's C? Controller. Don't tell me to control. What does a controller contain? Huh? back-end code, which is the business logic. Okay, so the controller helps you to, it's somehow like the middleman to help you get something from the model and then to display the view. Okay, so that is MDC. MDC, you cannot run away from it. There's a reason why you're learning it. ESD. Model View Controller is a software architectural design pattern that divides the application into 3 interconnected components to separate business logic, data, and user interface. So the model is actually the data. We want to keep it simple. Okay. It's a software architectural design pattern. Okay, so that is your model. So this DB is to help us create the database helper, which we also did in Lab 7. Okay, you're done with this one? Can I move on to model? Sorry, the DB. Enough? Okay, now you click on the DB folder, create a new file, call it as database helper. Database underscore helper dot DART. Okay, so for Flutter and for Dart, file name should be named in this manner. Okay, lowercase. Any different words should be separated by as underscore. Okay, try not to use uppercase for your file names. Okay, so this database helper is going to contain the class to help us create the database, insert records into the database, retrieve from the database, update records in the database, and delete things from the database. Okay, so this demo will show you for the food diary. So if you plan to include another table as part of your enhancement development, then you may need to modify this file, or you may need to create a new file. It depends on your implementation. Okay, so in the past, students do it differently based on how they think it should be done. Okay, there's no perfect answer. We just have to see which one suits your implementation best. Okay, let's call this as DB helper. Okay, so DB helper will need to use a few references. Okay, firstly, you will need to import your food diary. Okay, so now you realize your DB helper is currently in a different folder from food diary. So how to import? Okay, if you do // you only see one. // means current folder. Current folder, then look for the file. If I want to go up one level, it is .. In .. then you spacebar, model, diary. In .. is to go up one level. So this one, if I go up one level, I will see DB, I will see model. So I will go into model and I will get the food diary. Okay, this is something I haven't taught you yet for your Flutter. Okay, so we will have 3, is it 3? 1, 2, 3, 4. So many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 functions. Okay, so we will have the function to initialize your database. We will have a function to retrieve. Okay, retrieve all. We will have retrieve 1. We'll have insert. We will have update. And we'll have it's actually 6. Yeah, 6. Okay, 6 functions. This is all meant to help us deal with the data from the database or in the database. Okay, so initialize database, similar to Lab 7, future database is, let's keep it short, init DB. Okay, so database is having an error because it is supposed to come from SQLite. So we need to import. Let's try to type SQL. Okay, then you select from here. Right? Okay, so database is a class predefined in SQLite package. So you need to import this. Okay, we will also need to import the path. To type path, then choose package path / path. Semicolon at the end. Okay, so this is going to be the only file, the only that file that will reference these two directly. In our actual app code, right, in the DATS later, we will only be referencing DB helper. Okay, DB helper will help us to do the background work with the help of SQLite and Power. Okay, so for this initialize DB, this is the function that will help us to connect to the database, open the database, access the database, create the table, etc. Okay, so this is supposed to be an asynchronous function. It is asynchronous because when we are dealing with database, it may take some time to actually retrieve the file or to create whatever needs to be created. So async is meant to ensure your UI don't hang there while the file is being retrieved. Okay, whenever you're dealing with web services in the future, you also have to use async to make sure your app doesn't give up yet and throw error. Okay, you will wait for the thing to come before it reports any error. Okay, so first line is to get the database file. This is an asynchronous process. Get databases file. Okay, so this one will be based on the value that will be returned will be based on the device in which you have deployed your application. Okay, so iOS will have their own default path. Android will have their own default path. So this one will help us retrieve the relevant default paths. Okay, so return open database. This is a function from SQLite. Okay, so this function initial DB will return a database. Okay, whether it creates a database in a process or simply returns an existing one will depend on whether the database has already been created. So for the path, it should be joined with the default path on the platform. So join your path with the name of your DB. So I will call my DB as food diary.db. Okay, you guys have learned how to create databases or the actual database files in other modules. Sure. So doing in ESD, I think. So did in SSD. Okay, so database files have .db at the back. Okay, we have version. So as I explained last week, this version is to help the compiler or whatever is running in the background to see if there is a version update in the DB or table structure. So if the number is different, it will try to fetch the updated structure. If not, it will not do any updates. Okay, so this is important, not for your project, because you can just simply uninstall. But in the future, when you have an app that is already deployed, people are already using it, but you need to modify things. Okay, so to make sure that the users get the updated version, you have to update this number. So that when they open the application, the updates will take place in the background before they actually use the application. Okay, so this is the versioning. Okay, on create, this is a callback function. This function will only be triggered once. When is that once? When the app is first opened on the platform, on the device. Okay, so that's why I say, if you're going to change your table structure, you need to uninstall the application and redeploy as a new app. Then your table will be recreated. Huh? How do you uninstall the app? Press and hold uninstall. Okay. So this one will only be called once. In its entire life, it will only be called once, which is when the app is installed. So if there's any change, you need to uninstall. Okay, if you have any typo, you need to modify, you will have to uninstall. Okay, so we will use this one, EB version. Okay, so we will execute eb.execute the SQL to create the table. Okay, this one requires an async. Okay, so this is where you put in your create table command. Okay, so for SQLite for strings, you use the text data type. Okay, integer, please take note, doesn't have an R between the E and the G. It's not integer, it's integer. Okay, primary key should be separated as 2 words. So increment is 1 word. Okay, so this is why when we create our model just now for the food diary post, we didn't really have an optional for the ID because the value should be inserted or created or generated by the table or by the database. Okay, when you create the object in your code, don't assign an ID, it will be assigned when it is inserted into the database. Okay, so not now means it is what? Cannot be now. It's mandatory, it's compulsory. So this matches your required keyword that you use in your food diary post class earlier on. Okay, so these are the column names. Just now I mentioned about your named constructor. Okay, make sure the spelling, the casing, everything is the same. So you don't have errors when you try to matchmake them together in your web functions. Okay, so this is the initdb function. Any questions? No questions, so if I ask you a question, you can answer, No? What? No questions all? You're clear on what is happening, right? Okay, let me ask you a question. When is onCreate called? Okay, what? The database? When is onCreate callback function triggered? Mentioned about uninstalling just now, right? Why you so fast forget? The very first, the very first time you launch the app on the device, it will be called. Okay, you will be invoked to create the table. Okay, what is this doing? This line is to connect to the database. To what? What is this line? It's not to connect to the database. This is just to join the default path with the name of the database. This one is the one that is connecting to the database to open up the database. In the return open database, this function will return a database object. So when I ask whether you have questions, you actually have questions, but you don't know your questions. Yeah, let's go on to the next function. initDB is done. Anybody still need this? No, scroll down. Okay, retrieve all. Should we do retrieve all first? Okay, let's do retrieve all. Okay, so this will help us to retrieve everything from the database. To facilitate our use of the retrieved items, we want it to be presented in a list of food diary objects, food diary post objects. Okay, so this is a future. There were many brackets. Future list of food diary posts. Get diary. Okay, retrieve all items from the table, the diary table. The first step is to initialize the connection to the database. So that would be final db is equals to initDB. Okay, this is an asynchronous function. Yes. Run. Okay, then we can proceed to do the query. Okay, how do we query? Await db.query. Okay, query will help us to query a table and return the items found. Okay, so the only compulsory thing you need to specify is the table name. But if you have any filters, then you can also specify the filters. Let's say you have, I don't want to retrieve everything. I only want with a specific ID or with a specific time. Then you modify with the filters. Okay, we will do that in the retrieve one later. But now we want to get everything. So we actually just need to put in the name of the table, in which case it is this one. Okay, so in your enhancements, if you're creating another table, you also need to do a retrieval. Just make sure you check and verify what is the name of the table you created. Okay, so that is what you put over here. Diary. Okay, so this will retrieve, but you need to store it somewhere. So we are going to create a variable in front of this line. Final list of map of string, comma, dynamic. Post this one, post again, query results. This one, I think we change to object. question. Then equals. Okay, so as previously mentioned many times, whenever you are dealing with SQLite, whatever you retrieve, it will be in map form. Okay, so you need to retrieve them and receive them as a map object. But this one will retrieve a few things, so it's a list of map objects. Even if there's only one, you will also put them as part of a list. Okay. However, we are expecting, Mr. Zain is so early today, we are expecting to return a list of food diary posts. This one, not the same. Okay, so we need to convert this into this kind of structure. Okay, remember the complicated code we use in Lab 7? I will show you the shorter way. Using one line only, but many brackets. So we are going to return query results dot map with the E inside. Okay, actually this E you need to put in another bracket. So we are basically going to turn this this thing here, these individual items in the map into food diary. The food diary post. Okay, so we are going to use the utility or the name constructor from map. Okay, so each item returned from the database query will be mapped, so-called mapped to a food diary post object using the utility function. Let me finish typing, then you can also see the bracket here. Okay, so food diary post dot from map. Let's revisit this. Okay, in case you guys are not aware, right? When you have a function in VS Code, you can right click on it. You can go to definition to see where it was defined, to see the implementation. Okay, so this is where it was implemented. So this name constructor takes in a map object and then maps it out in this manner to match the respective attributes. Okay, let's go back. Right, so this part here, what I'm doing is I'm taking my query results, whatever was returned from the database. I'm going to map the individual items returned from the database into individual food diary post objects. Okay, and then I convert the whole thing to a list so that I have a list of food diary posts. Okay, so this part is done first. This one. After this mapping has been done, I convert them into a list so that I can just return a list of food diary posts. Okay, so we do the complicated work here so that when it comes to our dark files later, when you want to see everything, We don't have to do so many conversions. We just deal with the food diary post structure. Okay. So this is to get everything from the table. So next one is to get an individual item from the table. This is the purpose of this is to help us do the edit. Okay, when you edit, you want to edit one by one, right? So you must be specific in terms of which one do you want to edit. Okay, so let's retrieve. Let's do the code for retrieve one. Retrieve one item from diary table based on ID. Okay, we usually use ID to identify the specific item we want to retrieve. So this will return back a future food diary post object. Okay, get post. Provide an integer ID asynchronous. Okay, first line is the same. Initialize the DB. Final DB equals to await init DB. Okay, second line is to do the retrieval. Same thing, await DB dot query. Z was late. Elvis is even later. You're trying to see who wins, is it? Okay, so put in the name of the table, then put in the filters. So for this one, we don't want to get everything. This one is the previous one is to get everything. You want to filter. I want to filter based on ID. So I use where. Then I put in, use the single quote, where ID equals to question mark. And I specify the arguments to replace the question mark. In this case, it is ID. Okay, so this ID is this one. The ID that you provide when you call the function. Okay, so this is not the classic way of writing your SQL statement. It's not select star from table where blah, 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 blah. Right, that part will be done by SQLite. You just need to put in the table name and specify your arguments or your filters. Okay, so the next part is actually not really needed if you had done your database insertions and structure properly, but I will just include it for the sake of including it. You all know what is limit? We have learned this from EWD, USD, SSD, no. SSD too simple. You know what's limit? What does the word limit mean? Limit your marks. No. If I say I limit your marks to 50, it means what? Yeah, maximum you can get is 50. So if limit 1 means maximum I retrieve is 1. Okay, so this may be required if you intend to implement something like pagination, pages, multiple pages. So one page only 5, so you limit to 5 lah. Then the next page you put another different limit. Okay, but you may need to put in some ordering filters as well. So that one I will leave it up to you to explore yourself. Now you got your best friend ChatGPT, right? You can try. For this project, you try to use Gemini. Because Gemini is by Google, Flutter is by Google as well. Then you get better responses. Okay, so this is the query itself, but you need to be able to receive the outcome of this query. So once again, you need to create a variable in front. It will also be a list of map object, string, comma, this time around we put as dynamic result. Okay, so convert this into a food diary post. Then result dot from result dot, sorry, food diary dot from map, then result. Okay. Food diary post from map, result dot first. Okay, dot first means just retrieve the first thing that is in the list. Okay, so this from map will return me a food diary post object. Okay, that object will be constructed based on the first item in the list of maps returned via the query. Okay, any questions? Can understand everything? Yeah, if you want to ask me means you can understand. You don't want to ask also. Okay, so once again, if you plan to do CRUD for another kind of object you plan to store in your project, let's say you plan to have storage for BMI. So you need to create a BMI class, you need to create the attributes weight and height, you need to create a table to store your BMI values. You want to modify the BMI, you have to create the functions to do the modifications. Okay, so whatever I have shown for your DB helper and your model for food diary, you can replicate for your other objects. Yeah. Okay. Previously, students used the same database helper to put everything inside. Also can. But your code will be very, very long and quite messy. Okay, and you need to make sure your function names don't like replace one another. Okay, in fact, there were also students who, within this thing, they create multiple, create table, create table, create table. Also can. Okay, but you need to be clear and organized so that you also don't confuse yourself. Okay, so the next one is to insert. This is for your create of the CRUD. This is to insert new record. What's the time? 11:30. We are going very slow. Okay, insert new record into diary table. Okay, future, integer, insert. Insert to diary. Then what are we inserting? We are inserting a food diary post object. Okay, first line as usual is to initialize the DB. Wait in DB. Okay, so the function you use to insert is db dot insert. Okay, so compulsory attributes will be the table name and the values that you want to insert to the table. Okay, so the table name, of course, is your diary. See first. Let's bring this down so it's easier to see. Okay, so the values will be from the argument here. You need to convert it into a map first before you can do the insertion. Okay, so we are going to use the utility function that we have over here. Okay, so we want it to be this kind of format to help us insert into the database. So we do a post dot to map. Okay, then conflict algorithm. So saw this in our lab 7. This one just put as replace. All right, there shouldn't be any conflict lah. But in case there is, then you just do a replacement. Okay, so what does insert return? This method helps insert a map of values into the specified table and returns the ID of the last inserted row. Okay, so this ID is going to be very useful, right? So we need to have a receiving variable to capture the newly inserted ID. Let's call this as integer result equals. Okay, then we return the result. Result will be the new ID. Yeah. Okay, so this one will return the newly inserted ID. Okay, the next function is to update. Okay, so update the specific item in diary table. Because we will do the update by ID. Okay, so this is a future integer update post. Takes in a map. No, it takes in the food diary post object. Function will do the conversion to a map before it updates. Okay, first line is to initialize the database. Final db equals to await db. And then we are going to convert this value sent to the function into a map. Okay, so we need this because SQLite can only deal with map objects. Okay, so with this thing being converted into map, we can proceed to try to update. Okay, we will straight away return the result of the update. Return db.update. Put in the name of the table, which is diary. Okay, another common mistake that your previous classmates used to do, they don't know how to spell diary, they spell dairy. Dairy is a totally different thing. Okay, so if you create your table as dairy and you try to access it as diary, you will have error during runtime. Table name is not the same. Dairy and diary, Okay, so
The values will be the updated values that we have converted from the post object. And we want this update to only apply for a specific ID. If you miss out the ID filter, the same value will be updated for every row in the table. So you need to specify the where ID equals to question mark, and the where arguments is your post object dot ID. Okay, so this is to ensure the update will only apply to the specific ID that you indicate over here. This ID will come from this one that you send over to the function. Okay, so all these functions will be used later in our view pages or our edit page. The edit also will be in the add page. Then you'll have a delete. Okay, so delete is quite simple. Delete is the shortest one. Okay, this is to delete a specific item in diary table. Spell it out, it's here to disturb you. It has presents for you. Jadi aku angpau. Okay, this one is future void. Delete post. Future ID. Delete post. Not the post now. Okay, first line is to initialize the DB as usual. Final DB equals to await init DB. Then the second line is to trigger the deletion. Okay, so delete post don't need to return anything. It's just a future void. So we can db.delete, put in the name of the table. Okay, so if you leave it like this, it will delete the entire table. All the rows will be removed. Okay, if you don't want that, then you need to specify the arguments. Okay, so again, this will be based on the ID. So we will use the where ID equals to question mark, where arguments ID. If this ID will come from the argument here, or the parameter, the function. When you're done with this part, it takes so long to finish one part. We've got many files to go. No? Louder then. Not loud enough. Anybody finish the project already? Roman, you finish project already? No. When you finish ESD? ESD project very easy, right? Very hard. Nothing is easy for Zane, is it? Everything also hard. Life is hard. Any questions at this point? We're done with this file. We're going to move on to the app itself. So far, we have only been working on the back end things, the model, the database. Okay, nothing in the front end yet. We are done with this. We go to main.dat. Finally, let's look at main.dat. Okay, what should be main.dat? Okay, so this main.dat is not going to be a visible thing on your application. All right, so for this app, you will definitely need the bottom navigation bar. Okay, so the purpose of main.dat is to help us implement the routing and to start the Interesting. Okay, maybe let's not work on this one first since we haven't created the widgets yet. Okay, let's create a new Dart file outside of DB and model folders. Okay, so to ensure that it's really outside of those two folders, you click on main.dart and then you click on new file. Okay, call this as food diary view. Input underscore diary underscore view dot DART. Okay, check your hierarchy, make sure it is on the same level as main.dart. Collapse your DB and model folders so you don't get confused. Okay, so once you are here, we have created this file, create a stateful widget, STF. Okay, call your widget as view food diary screen. And make sure it's stateful. We are going to be dealing with data, so we definitely need a stateful widget. Okay, we need you to also import the model class. So /model/food_diary.dart. Okay, once again, dot means current location of this file, then followed by whatever you want to reach out to. Right, now in your state class, before your widget build function, create a late DB helper. This as helper. Okay, let it auto import. This one you should auto import this file for you. Where's my money? Give me my money. Very exciting outside also. Create a list of food diary posts, food diary list. Okay, so this will help us to contain the list of food diary items, which will be retrieved from the database. Okay, this one, the importing, make sure you import this one manually. This one, let it be imported as you type in DB helper. Okay, so you notice when you let it auto import, right, you will include your package, MSD project, blah, blah, blah. This is your project name. It is actually your project name. So when it auto imports, it auto imports in the most proper way, which is based on your project name, blah, 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 based on package. Okay. Right, so this list will contain the list of food diary posts that you are going to retrieve from the database. Okay, currently it is nothing, it's empty. It will be initialized once we start to retrieve items. Okay, the next function, the next thing we're going to create is an overriding function to override the initialize, right, the init state lifecycle function. Okay, init state is triggered each time your widget tree is about to be built. Okay, so first line super.init state. And then we will also initialize helper, DB helper.
Confuse the two things.
Does it matter?
Yeah, it's a
Or the last name?
specific message. Zin low.
Oh, you got a lot of presents before you graduate. Initialize DB. Sorry.
Yeah. Cancel so many times.
Just cancel the why only
On low is NE.
NE. Okay, so init state will be triggered just before widget build is called to build your widget tree. Okay, so we will call the default init state of your stateful widget, and then we will initialize db helper, this one, and we will also call the initdb function from the database helper class earlier on. 这个是 low， 这个是 warm， both not in uniform. Both zin in the same line. No, don't give. Don't deserve it. Give me instead. The Darren one and Jake one also take me.
Too late.
Fun also. Now you start to wear.
Me this. What the rest out?
The rest, they don't deserve it.
Okay. Oh. All mine.
So many not here.
Huh? 7 not here.
Next time. Give them. I don't know who will.
So I probably pattern.
Can, I will pass them after they sweep the floor later. Okay, so after this, you call load data, which is a function that we will define right after this. Okay, load data is going to be called to retrieve from the database. It is a future void function. Load data. Asynchronous as well. Okay, so we will populate this list with whatever we are able to retrieve from the database. Okay, put diary list equals to await helper dot get diary. Okay, so we already defined this earlier on to retrieve every single row from the table. So it will be retrieved in the form of map, a list of map objects. Okay, so that's why we go through the trouble of mapping it so that we can use it very easily over here. Okay, this list will be used in the widget tree later on. So to ensure that the retrieve value is reflected in the widget tree, we call set state right after that. Okay, the order of these methods are set state should only be called after you have retrieved. Because this is the point where the UI gets updated with the updated data. Okay, I will ask you what is load data for during your presentation. So make sure you captured what I said just now. Can you're being distracted by Mr. Dow's present, is it? Give you different things, right? Okay, so in the widget build, we are going to return material app. Okay, let's hide the show check banner set to false. Then the theme. The theme thingy, I leave it up to you how you want to customize. So for now, I just say use 503 set to false, and then primary swatch set to green. Since it is supposed to be a health application. Okay, for the home, you will have a scaffold. Actually, before home, let's put in an app bar. So in the scaffold, we put in the app bar. App bar. Then we have body. Let's use center for now. And then we should have bottom navigation. Okay. Okay, so I am showing you an example of auto navigation bar in my demo. You definitely must use bottom navigation bar for to include your enhancements. Okay, so this is the food diary view. The purpose of this page is to display all the items that have been saved into the diary, and you need to use a grid view for your project. Okay, what is a grid view? Cannot talk some more, talk some more, talk some more, talk some more. 3, 2, 1, done. Okay, so what is a grid view? Anyone knows what is a grid view? I did cover grid view briefly in MAD. Oh. MAD, where are you? MAD. This is the chapter 3 or chapter 2. Chapter 2. Okay, remember the different types of widgets. We have grid view here. Okay, so this is, we have been doing list views with your list styles. Okay, list view with your list styles. Grid view is to arrange the children of the grid view in this manner. Okay, in a scrollable grid with a combination of columns and rows. So like your Instagram, when you look at your page, right, you will see your picture in the grid. Okay, so if you feel inspired by Instagram, you want to modify based on Instagram design, I leave it up to you. Okay, but I will just show a very simple one for the sake of showing you a grid view. Any customizations is up to you. Okay, before that, let's customize the app bar. Let's configure the app bar rather. Put in the title, food diary. Okay, so in the app bar, we are going to have a way for the users to add a new post. So I'm going to place this icon on the right side of my app bar. So I need to use actions. Okay, icon button. Press, give it empty function first. Excuse me, what's happening? Okay, for icons dot add. Just cancel that. It's just a plus. Okay, so right now, if you run your app, you won't see anything. You will just see main.dat, which has just your simple hello world text there. But we want this to be our home page for our application. So since we have created this widget, we can now modify the main.dat to point to this page so that we can actually see something today in our demo. So I could do add item today, but seems like we are very slow. We are done with this. Cannot. Okay, we are done. Okay, so in main.dat, I need to remove the constant. Okay, this one, debug, show track panel false. Get rid of the home, put in your routes. Remember the routes that you did early on in MSD. Okay, so the home is, the default route is this view. Is it view? Diary screen, yeah, this one. Oh, wait, let me sort out the text. Okay, so this is set as my home page. When my app is launched, I want to see view food diary screen. Okay, now let me try to deploy my application. Okay, so when you are working on this project, right, there's a lot of asynchronous thingy that is taking place. So if you do the running by run start debugging, each time it encounters an issue, that means something is missing, it will pause. You will need to press the continue icon that will show up here. Okay, but if you want to skip that process, you choose run without debugging. What? Okay, however, if you do have errors in your code, then you really need to use run debugging, then you debug slowly. It definitely will have errors on that, so you need to take a look and pause here and debug here and step over and things like that. Okay, this one, my bottom navigation bar got nothing, and that's why I got this error. So I'm going to comment it out for now first. /. Okay, so you should have this. Yeah, so neon on the projector. Okay, so you should get this plus here. So this should link you up to the page where you add a new record. Okay, if you have the error, it's because of the bottom navigation bar in your viewer. You just comment it out first. And this back once we have things to put in the bottom navigation bar. Okay, so for the next step, I am going to create another .dot file to link up the plus to the new widget. Okay, so that page will be called food diary at .dot. Okay, comment out the bottom navigation bar, the whole thing, you just comment out. Okay, create food diary at .dot, stateful widget, name it as at food diary screen. Okay, at food diary screen. Okay, this is going to be a slightly different kind of widget. This is the widget that is going to have an argument when you call it. Okay, because we want to send information from one widget to another widget. Okay, so at the stateful widget level here, go inside, you create this final string image R. Okay, you add this, and then you need to modify this because right now your widget has this attribute which you need to include in your constructor. This is also a constructor. Okay, this super key, you can remove it, replace it with required this dot image path. Apply here. I think I'm spelling. Modify the what's the call? Okay. Okay, likewise, also add this in your screen, in your state class. Just copy paste this. Copy paste. Okay, additionally, you need to create a constructor. Okay, this one got more things to type on. You copy this one, you paste. Open bracket, curly braces, semicolon at the end. Then you put required is dot image path. Okay, that will generate an error here. So do the same thing. Not exactly the same thing. Put in image path, image path. Don't put any logic. Okay. Okay, so this one need to add, this one need to add, this one need to modify. This part need to modify. This one need to add. This one need to add. Okay, so you will double check your code against mine. See whether you have the same thing. Yeah. Okay, so this is the setup for this page. Okay, so the variables, the other variables you have to create for your state class. That means before the widget build. Okay, firstly, your let's start first final caption controller.
Just now, for the full diary view, we put DB helper, but when you put DB helper, it doesn't like detect.
Need to import.
What?
You didn't auto import.
Oh,
Yes, never. You put it a different name.
I see. I don't know what to find it.
DN helper leh.
Oh, typo.
DN leh. PPP.
Typo.
Caption.
I think it's capital B, D.
Capital leh?
Maybe check it.
Yes.
Okay, typo. Oh, thank you.
Okay, that's everything. Okay, so the next one, widget display image. Why you got error? Display image equals to container. String error message. Is to string. And linked. EB helper. Select from the list, so it will auto import for you. Click helper. Any other variables? The rest of functions. You still can go on. We're not even 10% done. Okay, the not the problem, but the thing is that one file relies on another file, which relies on another file. So the view relies on add, which relies on another file, which we don't create yet. So nothing is going to work at the moment now. The only thing that will work now is when you press this, you should be going. She's not even there yet. I haven't even linked it yet. Okay, when you press this, it's supposed to go to that page. So you still got energy. No, that means Monday you masuk very hard already. So this weekend you party, right? This weekend is your Chinese New Year first weekend, right? Party, right? You'll come back drunk on Monday. Okay, let's create a small function. Two small functions. Create a future void load data. This is to anything here yet. Let's do a void override void init state. Super.init state. Load data. Initialize your helper. On the init DB. Okay, let's leave it as this for today. Okay, Monday 1 to 7, 1 to 6. I thought I could finish the demo on Monday. I think should be can if we go until 6 o'clock. Okay, so those who were not able to capture the demo today, please go back and look at the recording and catch up. When is your project due? When is your project due? The project is due on the 8th of March. So you have 2 weeks, 2 weeks plus 2 days. 2 weeks plus 2 days left. Yeah, then on the week thereafter, that means on the 9th, I only see you on Monday and Friday. On the 9th, can everyone present? It will be 13. 12 got exam. Okay, the week after his presentation, everyone try to present on Monday. If not, then I will have to see you on Friday. Okay, once you present, you don't need to come for MSD. When is your ESD project presentation? Don't know, don't need to present. Tell me by when. Oh, 2nd March. Next week only. And you all can finish by 2nd March. What finish already, no? No, ESD is 2nd March. You all can. EIF then? Oh, same as mine. Are you all learning anything in EIF? No. Why you laugh? You never take EIF. I'm not paying attention. It's late. So many late. This is what happened to Andrew. So long never see you. Mr. Seagull is okay. Who's not in uniform? Darren. How many of you want to donate your sweeping services? Sean also. Lin Wong also. Wong Chin Feng. Marisa, no uniform. Okay, okay, we will let you all go. Yeah, go, 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 go. Huh? Yeah, done.